Welcome to AARP, Arizona Hispanic Connection. Educate. Celebrate. Connect. Arizona Hispanic Connection.
Hello. This is David Parra. You are with us today at AARP Arizona Hispanic Connection, a platform designed to educate, celebrate, and connect Hispanics of all generations. We have a special show today, as we always do. We have 6 guests with us today. The subject is education, the great equalizer. So we'll see how true that is, right, with this guest that we have today. Before we jump into the subject, again, is education, the great equalizer. We have Joseph Garcia on the phone, and I've asked him to kind of tell us about the data, what the data shows about Hispanics, about education, how we are doing, what are the challenges. So, Joseph, are you there?
Yes, good morning.
Good morning. Joseph is the director of the Morrison Institute Latino Public Policy Center at ASU, and I think I got it right this time, right, Joseph?
You got it on the spot, yeah.
All right. Well, many people are hearing, Joseph, so would you share with us the state, the data, the numbers? What do they show about how Hispanics are doing in the realm, in the field of education? Shoot away.
Okay. Well, a lot of the information we have that we're going to be talking about is on our website at morrisoninstitute.asu.edu. And much of it comes from our dropped report, which was about Latino education and Arizona's economic future. And we have a few other reports on there, including one from last year, which I'm a member of the Arizona Minority Education Policy Analysis Center. I know that's a mouthful, but it's because AMIPAC. And every year we put out the Arizona Minority Student Progress Report, which also measures how all people, including Latinos, are doing in educational attainment. So I guess I'll start from there and kind of mention overall. I don't think it's to any surprise that I can tell you that Latinos are not doing as well as non-Latino whites are when it comes to education. That includes, when we're talking about graduating from high school, includes from going to get a associate's degree, a 2-year degree at community college, and it certainly goes towards when you go to a 4-year university and getting a bachelor's degree, a master's, or a PhD. There are many reasons for this, which I'll be glad to go into, but suffice to say that there's a long road to go, and there's great urgency to get there because the Latino population is a very young population. In fact, there are more Latinos in Arizona's K through 12 system than there are non-Latino whites. So Latinos are our future workforce, our future leadership, our future economic base in Arizona. We need to rely on Latinos more for those attributes. But if Latinos are not achieving to their full potential when it comes to education and degrees and certificates and skills, Arizona won't be able to compete economically either regionally, nationally, or internationally.
Right. Now, I understand, I saw your PowerPoint before coming to the show. The rate of high school graduating or Hispanics graduating from high school is about 78%. Is it?
Yeah, the PowerPoint you're referring to, the one that, David, when I met you, was at the Hispanic Leadership Institute.
Right.
Yeah, in February, and that's where I got to know you, and you got to learn quite a bit, and it was great knowing you. But let's start right there with the high school numbers. Part of the problem is if you don't have an expectation to go to college, there seems to be kind of an underlying lack of incentive to finish high school, because you figure if you're going to make minimum wage or low wage anyway, going into a low skill or manual labor job, you don't benefit by having a high school diploma. You can get that job a year or two earlier and make money a year or two earlier without a high school diploma.
So that becomes an incentive to just drop out of high school, correct?
Exactly, because you're not thinking anything beyond that. So, many, Latinos we're a disproportionate number live in poverty. So there's economic pressures which push many Latinos into not finishing high school, but getting into the labor market more quickly so you can help contribute to your family's income or raising a family or building your own life. But the economic incentive isn't there to finish high school because you're not thinking beyond high school.
Right. In 2000, 9% of Hispanics had a bachelor's degree or better. In 2015, we went from 9 to 13, which is not a huge number. So that's 15 years. In 15 years, we moved from 9% of Hispanics having a bachelor's degree or better to 13%. So again, it's a big challenge. And Joe, I want to thank you so very much for spending a few minutes of your Saturday with us and sharing this news. They're not the greatest news, but they're still, we need to hear it. So thank you very much.
Well, thank you. And I think the key is the messaging and the expectations. And that's the expectation that not necessarily that everyone has to go to college when it comes to Latinos, but that everybody has to get some post-secondary education, whether that be in community college or it could be a certificate such as welding. It could be a college degree, but main thing is you get some education beyond college because you're that much more marketable, and economically you'll have greater success for your family and your community.
Definitely. Thanks so much, Joseph.
Thank you.
All right. Well, next we have 6 young professionals in the studio. I got to meet most of you at HLI, the Hispanic Leadership Institute. Is ending. We're graduating this coming, Thursday? Mm-hmm. And I'm telling you, I was the oldest of that group, so you could almost be my children. And I am so impressed. You beat the odds. You're just great. You're brilliant. You're successful. You are the young professionals. And I kind of had the vision to say, wait a minute, these folks have to come to the show as people who have beat the odds, people who are successful. And we want to celebrate you for your accomplishments, but at the same time, we want you to talk to your peers, to the youngsters out there who are struggling, who need encouragement, who need to get some ideas from you. So what I would like to do, and we can start with Veronica. We have Veronica Martinez. Let me see if I can get them all right. Veronica Martinez, Stacy, Flores, Clarissa. Please give me your last name. I have it written down. Estrada, Matt Aguilar, Arturo Gonzalez, and Pablo Sandoval. And they all have a very particular story. I had them kind of fill out a little survey if they had been born in this country or not, if they spoke English or Spanish first, if they are first generation graduates, if they are first, second, third generation Arizonans or born in the United States. So a series of questions just to get a sample, right? A sample of what's out there. And I think we got it. I believe, Clarissa, you're from Tucson. Yes. Is the rest from the Phoenix area, I assume? I wanted to get someone from Nogales and someone from Yuma. I couldn't. It's not my fault. They were not available. So, Veronica, would you take up to, 3 minutes and just tell us your experience, who you are, your background, and how you took the path of education and how you managed to do it. And if you can just speak to the mic, you can move the mic and get it closer to you.
Sure. First, I'd like to thank you for the opportunity to share my story. So, I'm actually third generation, born in the U.S. My family's been in Arizona for a long time, and I dropped out of high school when I was 14 and went back when I was 16 and a half. So all my, I would say, high school experience, I worked full-time. I went to school full-time, so that sort of kind of disciplined myself early on. I became a young parent at 20, and I had to give up a scholarship to Northwestern University.
Wow.
From there, I sort of just entered the workforce. After I graduated high school, I entered the workforce.
Did you graduate on time or a little late?
A little late.
A little,
yeah,
okay.
because I did drop out
Right.
Early. But I think one of the important things that I just want to emphasize with my story is being a third generation. I think there is a lot that each generation sort of struggles with, right? There are
Right.
barriers for each generation. And education wasn't really something that was pressed in my family. So there was a lot of poverty and incarceration. And so when I became a parent, I wanted to really give my child sort of a better life and sort of.
Is
break
that what
cycle.
did it for you?
That is.
The child?
Yes.
Okay.
That is sort of what changed my focus.
Wow.
And then I think also I just was always like a bookworm and was interested in learning.
That is so interesting. So you were very smart. You love to read, but you just the urge and the push and the vision for education was just not there.
Correct.
Early on.
Yeah. And I think for me in high school, my teachers were were individuals that really pushed me, really saw talents that maybe I didn't see myself or that people really didn't, encourage out of me. So I just to skip ahead, I entered the workforce and then full-time work, full-time school. I managed to get an undergraduate degree at ASU in 2010 in English literature. And from there, I decided I was really encouraged there. I found mentors, Latino mentors in the school system. They were actually PhD candidates.
They don't they don't leave you alone once you're in the pipeline, right?
Yeah, and I think that's great. I think
that is awesome.
One of the things I would encourage folks to do when they get into post-secondary or college, community college, universities, to find those mentors and to really look at those professors who want to invest in you, because those individuals are going to open the doors. And so that's sort of, I didn't really think about graduate school. I was like, yes, I got done with undergrad, and being a single parent working full time, it was very hard. It required a lot of discipline. I had no social life, writing papers at 3 a.m. in the morning and taking
I can imagine.
Anyhow, so I was able to get accepted to grad school, and then I graduated in 2013 with a master's in social justice and human rights and a concentration in nonprofit management. And that just really steered my passion for creating spaces where people can use their power and break down barriers for education and for at all levels.
So you're a witness of the before and the after, right?
Yes.
It's amazing. Yeah.
Yes.
We have Stacy Flores. If you can, grab the mic. I'm going to give you 2 minutes before we go on break. And then after the break, we'll continue, because I know you're not going to finish in 2. So go ahead. Stacy Flores. By the way, she loves baseball, and I think it'll come across when she speaks. Go ahead.
So thank you again for being here. My name is Stacy Flores, and I am a second generation college student. I was actually born here in Phoenix, Arizona. My parents actually met at Arizona State University, so they were both first generation college students. I will say, since I got to keep this part short, that I do very much agree with what the caller said. In my family, it was always talked about when, not if, when college came to be. And it wasn't ever when you get your associates. It was always when you get your master's degree.
Wow.
So the precedent had already been set.
Wow.
So I knew going in that everything that I was doing, and I'm the oldest of 3 daughters, so I was always very much focused on education and what that meant. Kind of talking about sports, I also knew very early on that I wanted to do sports in college, and that would be a vehicle for me to get to college.
You were very successful in sports, right?
Well, I think everybody says that they were successful, but yeah, some of my records are still holding at my high school. And, we won state, and we're the only state championship team to come out from softball. My parents, I think, would say I'm very successful because I went to state in track as a freshman, and my dad had said that it took him all 4 years. But I come from a very athletic family, but I actually started as a dancer. So I started, dancing, and then I stopped that.
What kind of music?
I really like jazz and tap,
Okay.
which is kind of an outdated, nobody really does tap anymore. But that's what I started, and I had actually started winning some awards in that when I ended up finding myself on the softball field.
Yeah. We're going to take a break. We're going to still give you a couple more minutes when we come back. You are listening to 1190 AM. This is AARP, Arizona Hispanic Connection. We'll be right back.
Welcome to AARP, Arizona Hispanic Connection. Educate. Celebrate. Connect. Arizona Hispanic Connection.
Thank you for staying with us. This is AARP, Arizona Hispanic Connection, and the subject today is education, the great equalizer. And we have with us 6 young professionals who have beat the odds, and I don't know, I just marvel when, class after class at HLI, 20-week long program, just hearing you engage and speak, it was just amazing to see the next generation and what education can do. It's just unbelievable. So let's continue with Stacy, and then we'll go to Clarissa next. Just anything that you may have missed. I know you have a lot, but we're kind of keeping it brief. So it's amazing how in your situation, no encouragement, no vision for education, whereas in yours is the total opposite. Your parents both had degrees, and it was the expectation was there.
Mm-hmm. So
you can get closer to the mic.
I will start again, kind of in high school. So I had told my coach early on that I wanted to go to play sports in college. And I didn't really know what that meant. And so I really credit my coaches for really kind of putting me down that path. So I had some offers to go out of state from high school, but I really wasn't ready to leave yet. So I ended up going to Phoenix College, where I actually decided on a track scholarship and putting softball aside at that time. And as time transitioned, I ended up running cross country, because with track, that's a natural fit. But then I started missing softball, so I ended up stopped running track, still ran cross country, and then continued with softball. So I ended up graduating with my associates from Phoenix College with an emphasis in communication, and then I left from there and actually went out of state to school. I went to Mississippi, where there were no Hispanics really anywhere around. So it was a big learning. It was a big learning curve for me in just navigating a space that was very different from how I had grown up. So I finished out my athletic career there, but I had my own television sports segment in local Mississippi.
Wow.
Because I knew I kind of wanted to work in sports. I didn't really know what that looked like either. And I was sports editor of my paper, so they really kind of helped shape what would then be the first portion of my career. So I actually graduated with an English degree, and I minored in journalism. And I can tell you that it's not so much in some cases the degree that's important as much as it is your internships and the experience that you get. So when people are like, you majored in English, I said, yes, that's why I write very well. Like I know how to articulate myself. Right. And so then from there went back home, and I found myself kind of working in the entertainment industry for a little bit. But I knew my heart was really in sports. So I was lucky enough to find myself working for Major League Baseball, both as a writer and then kind of like in account services. So I was working with a lot of the owners and players at that time. But education was always a draw. So I'll fast forward. I ended up finding myself working at Arizona State University and really had the opportunity to really kind of start guiding and working with first-generation college students, which is truly a passion of mine. And really just wanting to give them the the mentorship, because in going through my college degree, I didn't see really anybody that looked like me. You know, I was fortunate enough to have mentors, but they were all mentors of different races, which I feel is important as well. You don't always necessarily need to be mentored by somebody that looks like you, but somebody that cares and is truly ready to guide you. So I got a master's degree from Arizona State University in post-secondary and higher education, which basically allowed me to continue to help drive and really put a framework around what I was doing. I was really kind of missing working with high school students, and so I then knew that I needed to transition again. So I went back to school and got another master's degree in counseling through Northern Arizona.
Your second?
Yes, my second. Through Northern
look
Arizona.
At this. Look at the talent. Look at the talent. What if neither of you had gone to school? It would have just been a talent that would have just been there, not developed. And that's what happens to thousands of our young people out there. The talent is there, but all that is needed is to develop it, right? So this is amazing. We're going to have to go to Clarissa simply because of time. But I don't know. I mean, you even were at some point, you even got a ring. You were associated with the D-backs when they won the championship.
Correct. So I was able to work at a very storied time in the Diamondbacks franchise.
Let's see if time allows for you to elaborate a little bit more on that, okay? Clarissa Estrada, she's from Tucson, and let's hear your story, Clarissa. An amazing one also.
Thank you, David, for having me here. And so I am a first-generation college graduate. I was born in Tucson, graduated from high school back in 2008. Like Stacy, you know, it was kind of expected that I went to college, although it wasn't exactly established. My grandparents were actually pretty fundamental in having me go to higher education. My parents were very supportive, but my father actually comes from a background of just he had a certificate program as well as my mother, so they were supportive in my schooling, but never really pushed me to the extent that my grandparents did, although they did a lot for me, so I don't mean to undermine that. But so I went to University of Arizona, got my bachelor's degree in 2012 with a double major in sociology and Spanish translation and interpretation.
Okay.
I always knew that I wanted to go to law school, so...
How did you know?
You know, I don't really know.
Okay.
In middle school, it was just kind of, I want to go to law school. I don't really know why, or why a seventh grader's even thinking about that kind of stuff.
Yeah,
but I really liked to read and write, and that's pretty prevalent in the field. So it kind of worked out.
Right.
But so I did that double major and graduated 2012. Meanwhile, I was working part-time throughout my undergrad degree, and then started law school in 2013, and then just graduated this last May.
Wow.
Got
Is
my
that a
life-
hard career, law school?
Like Veronica was saying, I had no social life, basically, for the past 7.5
Huge
almost 8
sacrifice,
years.
right?
Yes, huge.
Yeah.
Huge. And I was working 2 jobs toward the end. Externships, internships are just invaluable. Your network almost creates a lot of job opportunities for you. So I think that's very important as well for students to just not get involved only in extracurricular activities, but involved in programs and mentorships, and just allow themselves to learn different things. I think a lot of students come with, oh, I already know how to do this, or I already know how to do that, and so they're closed off to receiving any type of help from somebody who might know a little bit more than them. So just remaining open, I think, and having an open mind is definitely...
You know, I've noticed that for the most part, the help academically is not going to come from the home for the most part. The support, the moral support, big time from the home. But there's no way around it. We have to make people aware of programs. And that's something that to me is so critical. I think it was Adam Lopez who said a pipeline. We have to build a pipeline and put people into that pipeline. We just got to do it somehow. You know, next is Matthew Aguilar. And Matthew Aguilar, he has a very amazing experience. And one of the reasons why I invited him is precisely because he still does not have his degree. I wanted him to come because, not like Joseph said, not everyone out there has to or is going to go to a university, and there's other ways to to make it, so to speak. So his experience is really good. He opened up his own business. So can you share your experience with us, Matthew?
First of all, thank you for having me. I'm really excited. Some of these things I didn't even know about you three, and I've known you for 20 weeks. But yes, I am Matthew Aguilar. I do have a bit of a different experience when it comes to education. I did drop out of high school when I was very young, when I was 15.
Did you get in trouble?
You know, I wasn't, I was troubled, but I didn't really get in trouble.
All right.
I wasn't necessarily a bad kid, but, you know, I did have my issues. It's funny because I was actually in academic decathlon right before I dropped out of high school. So,
wow.
You know, so it's not really a program that just anybody is in. You know, you're like, oh, I really love learning new stuff and I want to compete learning stuff. And then I dropped out of high school. I got my GED right away because I knew that was important. I needed that. And I was 15. What else was I going to do? And tried to start at Phoenix College when I was 16 years old. I didn't have the discipline for high school, so I didn't really have the discipline for even community college at that time. But I did realize that I needed to do something. Right. I knew that I was going to have to enter the workforce. I was going to have to continue on into a professional life, which you're going to get into that regardless of what you do. So I do agree with Mr. Garcia that you need some type of education. Even now, I still don't have my college degree, but I did start my own nonprofit organization, which I've been running for nearly 2 years. I've entered other avenues.
Can you tell us just a little bit about that organization?
Yeah, it's Copper City Youth Project. It's a youth outreach program. We operate in South Phoenix. We introduce life and leadership skills to disinvested communities. So we really try to empower teens to dream big, and we offer the resources for them to plan accordingly.
Are you the only employee? You have employees?
We don't have employees.
Okay.
No. So I co-founded it with a friend of mine.
Okay.
Yeah, we've been doing that for 2 years. I also serve on the board for a couple other nonprofits. But with all of the work that I do, you know, since I didn't go to school for any of it, I'm constantly going to workshops, seminars, you know, trying to expand that knowledge because you're gonna need that regardless. And in certain avenues, you need school. Right. You know, like I want to get into public administration. I have to go to school for that. I can't really just learn that out on the streets.
So do you think now with a little bit older, do you have the stamina, the discipline to go back?
I mean, I sure hope so. I mean, because it costs money.
But I see that you kind of see that there's always like no way around it if you want to move up into the fields that you would like to.
Absolutely. You know, regardless of what you want to do, you're going to have to obtain some type of training, whether it's, you know, a trade that you want to learn. You know, if you want to better yourself. I've been to leadership seminars where I was sitting next to construction workers that were like, I want to be a foreman and I want to start my own company. You know, you don't have to be somebody that wants to be a CEO of a giant company to go to things like that.
Right.
Somebody with $35 can go to that.
Right.
You know.
Now, how about support from family? Was it there?
While I was a teen, you know, it was kind of touch and go. I had a lot of encouragement. You know, I remember growing up, my mom always used to tell people that I was going to be an astronaut. I don't know why. You would always say she wanted one of those shirts that just said NASA. Now they sell them at Target for $9.99. I should go buy her one and be like, all right, there you go, Mom. But, you know, I didn't really know how I was going to accomplish that. Plus, I mean, it would be cool to go in outer space, but I don't know how to do that. I don't know even where to start now, how to go to school for that. But, you know, it was there was a disconnect. My mother did go to college. So did my nana. You know, she went to college. So I was kind of like a first generation college dropout. You know? Wow. Yeah. So it wasn't really something that was pushed though. So it was easy for it to just be, you know, out of sight, out of mind.
Was there poverty in your home?
You know, we do come from South Phoenix. There were some hardships. There still are, of course. So it was more along the lines of, you know, you need to start working, which is what I knew. I knew that I needed to have multiple jobs to make sure that all my bills were paid and my family was taken care of, and that was the norm. So school wasn't necessarily the norm.
Right. So we're going to go on our break. You're listening to AARP, Arizona Hispanic Connection. We'll be right back.
Welcome to AARP, Arizona Hispanic Connection. Educate. Celebrate. Connect. Arizona Hispanic Connection.
Thank you. Thank you for staying with us. This is AARP, Arizona Hispanic Connection, and we will continue. We are addressing the issue of education, the great equalizer. Don't forget it. The great equalizer. And we're going to go now to Arturo Gonzalez. Again, every experience is just amazing, and it shows the great talent that it's there, but education will develop it. If we don't pursue education, that talent will probably just stay there, right? So can you share your story, Arturo, with us, please?
Yes, absolutely. First off, thank you, David. Thank you, AARP. La Onda, thanks for having us here this Saturday. My name is Arturo, and I have a different story, I think, from my colleagues here. I actually was born in Mexico. I was born in the beautiful state of Guanajuato. And, some of the listeners may kind of know about sort of what it's like to grow up in what we call El Rancho, which is very kind of traditional, kind of farm-like. And if they have grown up in that situation, they would know that there's a lot of poverty involved in that upbringing. So I think my experience stems from that. And we grew up, and because of the difficulties in El Rancho and everything that we had to endure, my parents were not able to obtain any sort of formal education. Over there, I think my mom went to middle school, but she never graduated, and my dad didn't go to middle school at all. He had to work since age 10 or 12. So growing up in that, we actually migrated, I guess, to the U.S. When I was 4 years old. We came as undocumented immigrants. And that really has shaped my experience in school. Growing up, I think, in elementary school, it was weird because I kind of, I was always that A honor roll student. I was always getting those awards and, very successful in that respect. I remember even have a newspaper article of when I grew up, and it was, I think, 6th grade, and I won the county geography bee. And it was, at the time didn't know that it was a thing, but I just won it. And I remember, when I had thoughts of going to college, that was always on my mind. I was always going to be either a doctor or a lawyer. That was something I wanted to be either one of those two things.
So you did have the thought of going to college early on.
I did, absolutely. Okay. I just,
Just like you, Clarissa. And you also wanted to be an attorney.
That is true.
Interesting.
Yeah, absolutely. And I remember it was a Saturday, and I was with my parents, and we were going, as many families do on Saturdays, to La Pulga, the swap meet. And I remember telling them about, hey, Mom, I'm thinking about college. And they're like, oh, okay, mijo, cool. And not knowing that what it would entail or what it would take. And so because my parents were not educated and had no formal education, I had to learn the system. I had to learn about FAFSA. I had to learn about scholarships. I had to learn about all these different things. And it was very trial and error based. And I grew up in North Carolina, a very rural part of North Carolina, and graduated high school in 2007 with honors. Went to the University of North Carolina at Charlotte right after. Got a double bachelor's degree in criminal justice and history. I was magna cum laude in undergrad. And for me, it was just I understood what it took for my parents to be and to give us an opportunity. So I was always pushing to make sure that I fulfill the legacy that they had started. I think it's a big jump just to come to this country, and I wanted to just be the best that I could be.
Right.
And, I began working when I was, I think, 15, 16 years old in La Pizca of, the picking of squash.
Right.
And then my first job, formal job, I guess, was at a KFC Taco Bell. I worked there for 5 years.
So it seems like in the experience of all of you, or most of you, working and going to school, it was kind of like there, right?
Not for me.
Not for you, yeah. But it seems to be typical, I think,
Yeah.
for a lot of families to work and go to school, as if going to school was not already, a huge undertaking.
Yeah, absolutely. So working was always kind of part of my upbringing, and kind of fast forwarding to more recent times. After undergrad, I actually was a teacher for a couple of years. I did a program called Teach for America. That's where my passion for education stems from. And
Now, is this a certified teacher, or more of a program?
It was a program, so you don't have to be a certified teacher to join,
Okay.
but in the process of those 2 years, you do become a certified teacher.
So how do your parents feel today? Are they with you here in Phoenix, or are they?
No. So I moved to Phoenix here in 2013 to come to law school. Went to Arizona State University, graduated last year. But my parents still live in North Carolina. I have no family here in Arizona, actually. So this is all new to me and this experience coming to this desert land. But I would say they're proud. I know that as traditional sort of a Mexican family, we don't really show a lot of emotion at times. I think this is very traditional. So I know they're proud. I'm sure they're proud. And I remember, kind of to conclude here, I remember when I graduated law school, I was the graduation speaker. And when I went home, I remember wearing this cap. And this cap symbolizes everything to me. And
Wow.
the cap on it says, product of immigrants.
Wow.
And that was just something that really spoke out to me. So.
Wow, amazing. Let's go to Pablo. Well, before I do, now you and I had spoken. It takes a lot of money, Arturo, to become an attorney. So you told me you're still paying your debts, right? Your student loans, etc.
Oh, absolutely. And, I know something that part of our community tries, as Latinos, we tend to be very conservative and debt adverse. We don't want to go into debt.
Right.
But I think to obtain professional degrees and obtain college degrees, you sort of have to. There's, either grants, and if you can't do grants, loans. There you go, loans. But it's just a part of life. So
Yeah,
yes, I'm still
the bridge is education. The before and after is very obvious. The talent is there, but the jumping that hurdle makes a huge difference, like day and night. And I just marvel, to see the talent and what education can literally develop it to such a degree that it literally changes your life. It's like, wow. So Pablo Sandoval, you're no relative of the baseball player, right?
That's what I was going to say.
No, I'm not. Just the same
And
name.
she would know. Stacy would know who I'm talking about. Go ahead, Pablo.
Thanks for having me here today, David. So my story is pretty similar to most of us sitting here. My parents come from Zacatecas. I was born and raised in Aguascalientes. My parents actually they do come from El Rancho, like Arturo's parents. My going back to my parents, they actually moved back and forth between Chicago and Zacatecas for a period of about 20 years before I was born. So half my siblings were born in the U.S., half my siblings and myself were born in Mexico. There came a time where my siblings were looking for opportunity. They all started moving to the U.S., and it was really just my parents and myself that were in Mexico. So at that point, the decision had to be made of whether we stayed or we came back, which was actually my first time coming over. So we came over. I was just about to be 15 years old, went straight into high school. English was not my first language, obviously, so I had to join our ESL program at Trevor Brown High School in Maryvale. And then I eventually moved out of the program that usually takes about 4 years. It took me actually a year and a half.
Wow.
So I always had really good grades. My parents really had that expectation that I needed to do good, and I needed to go to college and university. My parents only had a second and third grade education, so they really wanted the best for me. Being a newcomer was definitely a challenge. Not only did I have to I guess assimilate into American culture, learn the language, but also it didn't take long for me to realize that I was a little different. I was a minority, although at times it felt like I was a majority in my high school. But then when you look at the big picture, it was not easy. I graduated from high school with a 4.1 some GPA, top 1% of the class. I was number 4 out of 400 and some students. That was the only.
Now, Pablo, as you're going to school, what was the motivating factor for excelling in school and aspiring to higher education? Was that something that your parents did, or it was just there?
Yeah, well, it's kind of interesting that you mentioned that, and I think I don't know if we've touched on this or not, but my parents sacrificed a lot, and so did my siblings. I'm the youngest out of 5.
Mm-hmm.
I'm the only one that graduated with a college degree in the U.S. So I was kind of like the pinnacle at the end of the family, meaning education and achievement, because they gave everything up so that I could be here today.
Right.
So going back to high school, I wouldn't be here without the help of many of mentors. Ms. Judy Ferguson was the head department of the EAL program at La Jolla Community High School, which is actually the high school I graduated from. She really helped to push me forward, and she I knew I was going to college, I just didn't know how. She pushed me to join the National Honor Society. I started doing community service, and then she actually asked me to join the Aguila Youth Leadership Institute, which we can talk about, and it could go on and on. So going back to my story, I guess, I graduated top 1%. So being in the top of my class, I was actually awarded the presidential scholarship at ASU. Honestly, it was a little challenging for me deciding what college to go to, because I was undocumented at the time.
Were you a dreamer at DACA?
Well, DACA wasn't even in place yet, because this is in 2007 when I graduated high school. So I actually went through the whole, I guess, drama, for lack of a better word, that my scholarship got taken away. So I was in the Aguila Youth Leadership Program. I was applying to scholarships. I was learning about financial aid. Yeah, so I was going through this whole process while I was undocumented, and trying to go to college and trying to figure out a way to pay for college.
And you have a master's, and your field is construction industry?
I actually have a bachelor's in science in construction management, and then a certificate in international business.
Got it. Thank you very much. We're going to go on our last break. You're listening to AARP, Arizona Hispanic Connection. We'll be right back.
Welcome to AARP, Arizona Hispanic Connection. Educate. Celebrate. Connect. Arizona Hispanic Connection.
Thank you for staying with us. This is the last segment. This is AARP, Arizona Hispanic Connection, and we'll continue with the subject right away, because obviously time is going to be important, and we only have a few more minutes. Let's cover a few points, but I'm not going to call on you. Just grab the mic, whoever wants to say something. Not everyone has to say something. Anyone is fine. Let's just relate maybe real quick about the sacrifice. Is it a big sacrifice to go through the path that you've gone? And just kind of be very brief and 2-3 words and pass the ball around, so to speak. How big is the sacrifice?
So in my experience, it was a huge sacrifice. Now, I didn't go through school, but entering the professional career and my career, and just having to work, I you lose your social life. You invest a lot of your money into different avenues to further invest in yourself. And I didn't get to see my family as much as I used to. We all live. Well, I don't live in the same block anymore, but I have like 12 family members that live right next to each other and across the street from each other,
Right.
where we used to literally see each other every day. And then
So social life is lost to a large degree.
It does.
In
There's
many
a give
cases.
and there's a get.
Right.
So you do sacrifice a lot in a lot of different areas.
Anybody else wants to say anything around the area of sacrifice, real quick?
So I'll touch a little bit on it, and I think I just broke the mic. No. Okay. So I think sacrifice is mostly in the financially and socially. And I think a lot of it, too, that maybe a lot of people don't realize is that sometimes the student gets so reclusive because they're studying and focusing on school that there may be themes of depression maybe going on or some type of isolation because they have to keep studying and writing those papers and going to work and going to school, and so everything else sort of falls by the wayside. So I think that's where family support kind of comes in, and if they're anything like my parents, they will call you every day, text you. If you don't text back, they think you're dead. But they were fundamental,
Right,
in the education process, and just
Right.
even where I am today. And I think that's true for a lot of other students.
Definitely. Anybody else about sacrifice? How big is the sacrifice?
Yeah, David. I think the sacrifice here, everyone's got their own experience, obviously, but I think one thing that maybe wasn't touched on is the idea that, if your family and your relatives are not used to this idea of someone going to college, yes, you are going to be reclusive, or it feels to them like you're reclusive. It feels to them like you're just like distancing yourself from the family when you're really not, and that's kind of hard to regurgitate it, at times, is this idea that you are doing this so that in the future, down the road, you leave your family off in a better position. But in the meantime, maybe you're not going to go to the quinceañeras and the bautizos and everything else. But
that tough, huh?
Yeah, absolutely.
Right. How about now? We do agree that high schoolers, we have to find a way to connect them, right, to programs. Anybody want to? I mean, you work with high school. High school or first?
High school,
yeah.
now.
Can you elaborate just how critical it is to connect them, to put them in the pipeline, so to speak?
So I'll actually back up that the research shows that you actually have to start talking to students about college in the 6th grade because it needs to start being the thought process by the time they're in junior high, so they're prepared once it comes time to high school. But in high school, really, it's about connecting, as you said. The research shows that you'll do better if you're connected to something, and that's true also when you get to the university. But there's programs like dual enrollment, the ACE program, that will both start giving you college credits. You have programs like Be a Leader, or he mentioned the Aguilar. So there's all of those things to connect. Now, for the parents whom, may not have had any college formal background, ASU offers through the high schools the Arizona Dream Academy. So it helps teach the parents how to navigate the system.
Right.
And I think that having worked a lot this past year with the high school to college transition, it is a lot. And I worked on the university admission side. And even in a year for me being gone from there, the process changed a lot. And I was really able to see, since I have a dual lens from the university perspective, but also now the high school, it is really challenging if you don't have any guidance. So connecting to those types of groups, IB, the International Baccalaureate Program, AP, Honors, all of those programs are designed to help the students be successful academically.
And I have started to do to compile a list, create a list of all those programs, and I hope to finish it soon and just make it available. I think we have to. It's going to be critical to have our high schoolers, even before then, to connect them to as many or any programs that are available. I think is going to be critical.
Can I say one more thing? There's also ASU offers a lot of summer programs starting that freshman year of a high school student's time, and those are absolutely critical. And the thing with ASU is because President Crow really believes in access and educating the youth of Arizona, there are scholarships available, even though it doesn't necessarily say it on the website. So students and families...
Money should not be
Correct.
a stumbling block, so to
Correct.
speak.
But sometimes it often is.
Right. Okay, because of time, I wanted to ask another question because I think it's very important. When you go to school, you kind of have to postpone the traditional family life. You know, I got married at 22. My wife was 22 also. But it seems like once you go into this path, you kind of have to postpone. How is that in your experience? How is it in your radar still? I mean, how is that?
So I could touch on that. I mean, because I'm still single and unmarried, but I think it weighs into kind of what a couple of people said, right? It does put pressure on your relationships and your connections with other individuals, and it touches on sacrifice, right? I think you have to find partnership with someone who is willing to understand the space that you're in. But I also wanted to say that it doesn't have to be this traditional lens of family.
Okay.
I think that I don't have a partner, but I feel very fulfilled in my life as a single parent, as a single mother. And my huge support system are my mother, my father, and my siblings. And I think one of the speakers here touched on that. It's like I wouldn't be where I am today, and it wouldn't be able to be successful if I didn't have the support of my mother,
Right.
my father, and my siblings. And so in some ways, those are the relationships I choose to invest in because they are able to kind of help me.
It definitely takes you through a different path.
It does,
Education.
yes.
It's just no way around it. Anybody else wants to elaborate on the family life, forming your family? I mean, I'm sure that even families, because most of you, I'm sure, come from traditional families that kind of put pressure on you. When are you going to get married? I want kids. I want to be a grandpa, blah, blah, blah. Anybody else? As to how family in that regard, is it an issue? Is it not an issue for you?
I don't think it's an issue because coming from traditional families, like I have a brother that has 6 kids. I have cousins that have like 10 kids. So I don't really have, I think all my nana and my tata are like, okay, that's enough. You don't have to.
Okay.
So, I mean, and then in regards to relationships, you know, just like Veronica said, you know, we build relationships in other ways, and we do have that same kind of fulfillment.
And to be honest with you, I'm not linking this question as to traditional family or not, but I mean, you are probably the most qualified now to have kids and lead them into a path that you already walked. So logically, one would think that you are, you know, at a good situation to raise kids. So in that regard, you know, it seems like this is not happening as some people might think it should.
And David, if I
Yes,
may
go
say
ahead.
something, I think just from my perspective and just as far as it goes for women, I think it may be a little bit different. You know, you marry young and you kind of traditionally rely on your husband or the man in the relationship to kind of provide. That's just historically and culturally been the norm in the past. So for me, though I've previously been married and I got married young, I was 22 years old. And my former husband, you know, knew that I wanted to go to law school and was supportive. But I think there's a little tug and pull in that, and that they also struggle within themselves. So it definitely puts a lot of pressure on the relationship. So if I had to say anything, I would say just definitely hold off on the marriage until you find yourself in a position where you are happy. That way you can bring more into the partnership, into the relationship, so that you're equally on the same footing and one isn't bringing the other down. But for women especially, you know, they to go further and, you know, hold themselves to a higher standard and seek that education. So
Yeah.
it's definitely
Okay.
important.
In one word, 2 words, breakthrough. We only have a few more minutes, like half a minute. How are we going to see a breakthrough in education with Latinos? Just 1, 2 words, whatever. Keys.
Access.
Access to education.
I think for me, it's about economics, right?
Economics.
Building our communities.
Building our community.
we really have to understand that going to college is within reach. There's definitely a lot of resources out there with the community. Aguila Youth Leadership Institute being one of them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm going to use one word, and that's kind of willpower, or ganas, as we say in our community.
It's going to take a little bit of everything, I think, but because as Joseph said earlier, we do have challenges, and we have to work together if we're going to break through. And I think we are making progress. More is needed. So I want to thank all of you for being with us today. We run out of time. Thank you very, very much. And we'll see you next week. This is David Potter with AARP, Arizona Hispanic Connection. Have a great day.